guys. Nothing like San Francisco in the springtime, am I right? Alright, anyways, let me cut through the nonsense and get started here. Alright, so this week we're going to continue learning about the principles of design. We already learned about directional force, size, scale, and proportion, some of the other principles of design. That's in contrast to the elements of design that we discussed previously, which include color, line, point, texture, value, shape, and mass. Alright, so today let's continue with our discussion of the principles of design and look at balance and contrast. Balance and contrast are both utilized to create dynamic artworks. They help create beauty and direct eye movement. Balance is the collaborative space where sculptors and gravity connect. If you've ever watched a tightrope walker or yoga balance pose, you can relate to how taxing it can be to try to keep a sense of control while in action. Balance, therefore, is an equilibrium of weight and force. Three-dimensional objects utilize actual balance. Some artists are like tightrope walkers, and they defy gravity to pull off stunning feats of art that are engineering marvels, like this red cube by Isamu Noguchi. Looking at this sculpture, we're caught in a sense of anticipation, waiting for one big wind to push the sculpture over. The artist has captured both tranquility and anxiety by controlling the balance of this massive public artwork in downtown New York. In two-dimensional artworks, artists don't have to worry about the physical weight of an object, but they do have to concern themselves with how visual weight and balance affect the artwork. The visual weight of this work by Raphael is one of almost perfect balance, meaning that visually the work appears to have an equal amount of information present on each side of the composition, right to left. There are four kinds of balance: symmetrical, approximate, asymmetrical, and radial. As you can see from the variations, balance can mean the exact same thing on each side, or it can mean that there are a variety of objects that call and respond to each other. Symmetrical balance is the visual or actual equilibrium of two halves of a composition mirroring each other in size, shape, and placement of the elements of art. Symmetrical balance is a mirrored composition along any axis. Our human body is symmetrically balanced on a vertical axis. Think about when you were in grade school and you were asked to cut out and create your own snowflake out of paper. You started with a piece of paper and learned about how to fold the paper along a variety of axes. While each snowflake is unique, they're each symmetrical on a variety of axes. The popular psychological test, the Rorschach test, or ink blot test as it's sometimes called, asks people to look at symmetrical shapes created by blobs of ink being squished together on a folded vertical axis. The test then asked people to imagine what they saw within the abstract shapes. What you saw was supposed to be an indicator of your subconscious mind. What do you see when you look at this image? I think I see a goat's skull? I don't know. I'm not sure what that says about me as a person. Symmetry in art can be used to create everything from intricate patterns on ceramic vessels to sculptures that show two heads. This artist used symmetry to create a mood of calm contemplation. If we were to draw a line down the middle of the figure vertically, it would be divided on both sides of the image in a mirror-like fashion. This is a characteristic of the artist's work, which usually makes images of women as ethereal beings or maternal figures. The figure's calmly downcast eyes and the muted palette of color also work to reinforce this calmness. Symmetrical designs can be very complex, as in this Tibetan mandala. Mandala literally means center circumference, and describes both the mandala's geometric structure and its religious significance. The center of the mandala, a square within a circle, is its essence, and the circumference is the grasping of the essence. Mandalas are meant to be the maps of the spiritual universe. The basic structure of a mandala is symmetrical and carefully proportioned, but it also allows for many variations. The mandala's symmetry of shapes is simultaneously vertical, horizontal, and diagonal. However, the arrangement of color is not precisely symmetrical. The symmetry functions to calm and center the minds and spirits of those in meditation. Watch this time-lapse video of these Buddhist monks creating a symmetrical mandala entirely out of sand. Approximate symmetrical balance means an equilibrium that is almost but not exactly symmetrical. Contrapposto is a way of creating approximate symmetrical balance within the figure. It was developed by classical Greek sculptors as a way to make figures seem more lifelike, but it also creates more visual interest as well. This sculpture of David by Michelangelo is a perfect example of contrapposto. This image also uses approximate symmetry. She split the canvas in two on a vertical axis by separating the two figures. Each figure echoes the other and creates a dialogue between you and the two of them. One of the most famous Japanese artworks of all time is this work by Hokusai, entitled The Great Wave. This image also is an example of asymmetrical balance, the visual or actual equilibrium of a composition that's not dependent on one side mirroring the other. This is an example of asymmetrical balance, visual or actual equilibrium of a composition not dependent on one side mirroring the other. So in other words, we have this great wave on the left side, and that's balanced out by this kind of emptiness on the right side. This spread from the children's book of 1957 called Sparkle and Spin also shows us another excellent example of asymmetrical balance in design. Each page is balanced, and the two facing pages present dynamic balance through contrast of large and small elements. The character's red face on the right is massive on a single page. It's counterbalanced on the left, though, by a smaller red circle of a lollipop, the many smaller circles in the upper left-hand corner, and the narrative of typed text on the left. It all helps to balance the image. This sculpture appears unstable, but is asymmetrically balanced. The sculpture has no axis along which one side mirrors the other, but the weight of each side is perfectly balanced. This piece asymmetrically balances the visual weight of the clouds with the light band of sunlight remaining on the plane of grass in the middle ground of the lower portion of the canvas. The three trees on the right of the canvas, which are visually heavier and more massive than the smaller tree to their left, with light and color playing a major role of achieving visual equilibrium. Pete Mondrian is an abstract painter who's known for achieving asymmetrical balance as well. Just like we saw in the last chapter about the spiral, radial balance is evident everywhere in nature. Radial balance is an equilibrium achieved by elements emanating from a point, usually the center, in a composition. Shells, flowers, the waves of a water droplet hitting water, all of these have symmetrical or approximately symmetrical radial balance. Damien Hirst composed this montage out of adhering sets of actual symmetrical butterfly wings in a pattern that uses radial balance. So just to emphasize, this is made out of actual butterfly wings. The symmetry of this work originates from its center and continues to its edges. Elsie Holiday is a fiber artist who uses concentric circles that are woven together around the center. The radial balance is directly related to the intended meaning of the piece. The piece has to do with a young Navajo girl becoming a woman, so the structure is symmetrical, but the design is not. This unsettling photograph by Eugene Richards is unbalanced and implies instability. This creates tension in the image. Richards is a documentary photographer known for his heavily weighted photographs. The subject matter is accentuated by the imbalance of this composition. The syringe is small in relation to the wide horizontal of the composition and shows the woman's desperation and struggle with addiction. Similar to Richards' Kappa's photo of the falling soldier, Kappa captured the moment that the soldier was shot and falls backwards. He accentuates the dramatic subject matter and falling momentum by having an imbalanced composition.